In this video, I'm going to show you how to create and manage quotes. Some things to think about before you start creating quotes are some of the quote settings. On the left hand side of the screen, if you go through to the settings menu, all you need to do is scroll down and you will see under configuration settings there is an option for quote settings. If we click into here, firstly you will see at the top of the page you can rename a quote. So if you wanted to rename it to estimate or something similar, just overtype that in here. You'll also want to replicate that with the heading, so if I did call it an estimate, when I generate one it will be called estimate at the top of the screen. We can also have a due date fields on the actual quote itself, but I've changed more for valid for 30 days on here. We can choose if we want the quote reference to be called a quote reference, or you can rename it to anything that you would prefer within your business. You've also got the option to remove the total from the bottom of quotes, but you can choose to add that in on an individual quote basis. You've also got the option here for converting quotes to invoices. So when you change a quote to an invoice, what do you want the category to change to? So you can either have it set as don't change it at all, but I'm going to set it so every time I win a quote and convert it to an invoice, I'm going to have it as closed and won. You also have the option here to copy a quote reference field to the reference on the invoice. You can copy the quote reference as a comment line on the invoice, or you could just choose not to copy the information across at all. You can also choose whether or not you want to automatically delete quotes once they've been converted, or if you just keep that unticked, all the quotes, and whether or not they've won or lost, will stay stored within the system. Once you've set up these settings, just click Save Settings. Another option you may want to do is basically if we go to Display Settings within the Settings menu, you have the option here for a quote summary. If I click on this, you can choose which categories within your business you would like to see. Once I click Update at the bottom of the page, that has now been turned on. So if we go to our dashboard on the left hand side of the screen, we will see on here that it's got a full quote summary, so we can actually quickly track when you log into the software exactly what's going on with all the quotes within your business. So if we just scroll down on our dashboard, on the left hand side here we can now see all of our quote categories we've got listed, how many quotes are associated with each category, and also the total, so you can see what's been lost and what's been won and what's still in negotiation, etc. And again, on this front dashboard you can move these around depending on where you want that to be seen. So there's various different ways to create a quote. One way is from this front dashboard. At the top of the screen there's a little drop down menu and you can just go and create a quote directly from here. The other way is just to click into the quotes module on the left hand side of the screen, and then you can just create a new quote. And the final way is if you're in a customer record, if we go to customers and go into Allied Radio, you do have the option next to each customer record just to create a quote from here. If I just click create a quote, it's going to take us through to the quotes module no matter where I tick that from, and this is what the quote screen will look like. So this quote is defaulted to quote number 1 because this is the first quote I've ever created. If you left it as quote number 1, then that's the number that your client would receive. So if you want them to feel like you've actually generated more quotes within your business, then I can just type over that, type 500, and the next quote I ever create will be quote 501. We can then just put a reference in there, whatever that may be within your business. The customer's details have come through and their address has come through as well. We can select to choose a different delivery address if we wish to from here. We can change the date, so I can just go and change the date of the quote within here. The category, again these are the default categories we've got within the system. You can add new categories into these as well. At the moment I'm just going to add a negotiation, and we can choose our default currency in there as well. Once we've done that, all we need to do is just add some line items to this. So I've got my general work that has come through. So it's just 1 day general work at £500. I can free type over this still. So I'm just going to add in 2 days, and that will calculate the total for me just by putting in a quantity of 2, and we can see that's changed the value. You can just free type any sort of bespoke work you want into here as well. I've got services, so I can just go and type into here utility room, and then we can just put a price in there. We can actually put in the net value and we can see it's added on the VAT rate for us, or we could just go in and type a total gross and we can see it will calculate the net for us as well. You can also choose any default VAT rates if you're on sort of cash accounting or anything like that, or if you're not VAT registered, you can go and change these rates within here. So you can also add in a comment line if there was something you wanted your clients to know. You can just free type in here. So again, I can just put valid for 30 days if I wanted to list that on a separate line, and you can move around this so you can show how you want that to be seen when the transaction is actually generated. So once we're happy with our quote layout and all the information is correct on here, I can just click save on the top right hand screen, and that quote has now been saved in the system. So now if we go to the quotes module on the left hand side, we can see that one quote has now been listed in here and we can see the value. And then if we go to the customers module on the left hand side and actually click into Allied Radio, if we go to the invoices and stats module, we'll be able to see that quote is now listed in here. If we click into the quote, we have got various options. At any point, if you need to change it, there is an edit button at the top of the screen. So just click edit, and then we can go and make any amendments we want in here. So I'm just going to say actually it was 3 days that they need for that, and that's changed all the values on there, and then I can save that back up again, and that's now changed the details on the quote itself. If you've got similar quotes that you do for a lot of clients, you've got the option to copy. So I can now copy that, and I can copy that to a quote. It's going to take all of those details, and then I can just go and change that that's for a different customer. Save that back up again, and that quote has now been number 501, and I've created that for a new client. So if we go to the quotes module on the left hand side, we can now see I've got 2 quotes in there. Again, you can see the references come through because it's copied. So if I just click into that and click edit, I actually want that quote reference to be 501, and then I can save that back up again, and those details have now been saved. You've also got the option on here to email and print. So if I go and print that, it's just going to print it off as a PDF, and if I click email, it's going to bring up my internal email editor, and it just attaches that quote as a simple PDF document. You can see that opens up, and that's what my quote looks like, and that's what my client is going to receive from me via email, or as said, I could just choose to print that off as a PDF and give that to the client if I was facing them. We can also add notes and store various files against quotes within the system as well. If the client contacts you and they want to move forward with the quote, all you need to do is click into the quote itself, and at the top of the screen you'll see you have the option to convert it to an invoice. Just click convert to invoice. A little notice will say up saying, are you sure you want to? Hit OK, and that quote has now been converted to an invoice, and it's brought us through to the invoice screen now. So if we go to invoices, we can now see that it's brought through the reference from the quote for me for this invoice, and we can now see the status of this invoice as unpaid. And now if we go through to the customer record and have a look at Allied Radio, we can now see that original quote we did is still stored in the system because that's what we did in the settings, and we can now see that invoice has been created as invoice number 1. If you need to change or add in any quote categories, within the quotes module at the top of the screen you will see categories listed here. If you click into there, we can just add new ones as and when we need to. So if I just add a new one in here, and we're just going to put closed, lost, and we're going to say we lost that to price, and you can choose what kind of flag you want to associate that with, and then you just click save, and that's now added in a new category that I can choose when I'm changing them or adding new quotes into the system. And that's how easy it is to generate and manage quotes using the software.